You're listening to the audio portion of Workshop Wednesdays. Workshop Wednesdays is a free live discussion about topics affecting accountants, bookkeepers, and business owners. You can join the ABO group in Facebook to participate live Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Just search for ABBO in Facebook. This podcast is brought to you by Schoolofbookkeeping.com, where you will learn, grow, and build a thriving bookkeeping practice. We have hundreds of lessons with almost every aspect of the industry. Start your free month today at Schoolofbookkeeping.com.
We're having another Workshop Wednesday. It is the 26th of October. No, August.
April?
We are in COVID land.
Ooh,
what day is it anyway? It's like the Big Lebowski.
Like Groundhog
We're just walking around in our bathrobe and drinking white Russians and hopefully going bowling every once in a while.
Well, those aren't very COVID friendly events, so there we are. We are here, so that's what counts.
So my name is Dan DeLong. I'm here with Carrie Kahn, and we are not Intuit employees.
Oh.
But we really like QuickBooks.
Most of the time.
So this Workshop Wednesday is brought to you by Schoolofbookkeeping.com, and we're just having these events so that we can just kind of talk about some of the intricacies of business and how do you handle those things inside of QuickBooks. So today we're actually going to be talking about how to handle a barter transaction. So Carrie, what is barter in general? Like what would you use to define the word barter?
Well, it's one of those words that when I first opened up my practice, I heard a lot. And here I'm desperately trying to make money. And people are like, can we trade services? I'll cut your hair and you do my QuickBooks. So, you can actually do that. We'll show you how to do it. But you have to decide, is it fair? I mean, are you getting if you're charging $150 for consulting, are you getting a haircut that's worth about that? So you have to weigh those things out, behind the scenes. And we're going to show you how to handle it in QuickBooks as well. And you may have customers that both are your vendor and ultimately become your customer. So that in QuickBooks, there's certain things and tricks you have to do so that you can have them listed as both a vendor and a customer.
So what we're talking about here today is just a trade of goods and services. So there's no exchange of money. It's just the trade of fair market value goods and services. So like you mentioned, I'm going to get a haircut and then I'm going to do your bookkeeping at the same time. And then there's ways that when it doesn't equate, like, if you're there for 5 hours, clearly that does not equate to a cut and color.
Well, yeah, or maybe a couple cuts.
Depends on the outcome of that cut and color. Right?
Yeah, you might think you got the bad end of the deal, and you might end up just giving. There's ways you could just say, "I'll take $150 off the bill," and
exactly.
And work it out. So it's one of those things that don't take too many chances with it, but you can do it.
So this process is going to talk about ways to handle that, and even if it doesn't match, you can still take care of the invoice or bill. And I was telling you yesterday, as we were talking about and preparing for this, I joined a barter network. The challenge with barter is it's one-to-one, right? So it's a customer who is a vendor, but I had joined a barter network where they actually used currency like barter. So I could go to somebody could call me for services and pay me with a barter check, and then that would be deposited in my barter bank account, and then I could go somewhere else and pay for their goods and services with barter, with that barter check. So it was almost like a Bitcoin currency of its day back in the 90s. So dating myself there. So Carrie, go ahead and launch your share your screen, and she'll do the desktop, and I'll kind of review the online QuickBooks Online version.
Yep, as I said, I had it right up here. So hang on one second. Showing my whole desktop. Didn't mean
There
to
we
do
go.
that. Okay.
We'll blur that out.
Oh, good. Thank you. So, one of the steps that Dan had me do was create a bank account. So I did a Barter bank account. And
that's going to be the key here for being able to pay for your bills and pay for your invoices, because as you know, in desktop you cannot transfer from accounts receivable to accounts payable in one transaction. So it doesn't let you do more than one of that in one transaction. So the Barter bank account is the go-between, the clearing account of being able to do that. So we set it up as a bank account because you're dealing with transactions that need to be deposited, as an invoice, or a customer needs to go to ultimately go to a bank type of account to be deposited. So that's why you would set it up as a bank type of account in your chart of accounts.
Right.
Please continue.
Okay, so then where are we going first? So I'll tell you the other two things I set up real fast before we went live is I set up my customer, and it's going to be the same name as a customer and a vendor. So I called it, my favorite customer is ABC Plumbing. It's right at the top. And I called it, this right here, this list is for you. So ABC, Plumbing. Within your customer name, you can put the real stuff down in here that shows up on invoices and stuff, but this is for you right here at the top. Did the same thing over in Vendorland, ABC Plumbing, vendor, same thing, and I have the ability to add the real data underneath. What's next, Dan?
So then you would get your hair cut. Well, in plumbing, this would be, they did some plumbing work for you. So you would have to put in a bill for the vendor to be able to record the fact that you have now an expense to pay.
All right, so I had some plumbing. Let's say they came and did repairs and maintenance of our plumbing. And do we want to keep it even, Stephen?
Well, let's just do a different value. Yeah, let's just do even. So let's do 250, because the way I have it set up in QuickBooks Online, it's not an even amount, so we can see the difference between the two.
So we're entering in the bill as though we're going to pay it. So because it's an expense for CBG. Yep. I had problems with my plumbing. I needed repair work done. So I'm going to save the bill, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So the bill's in. And now while he's here, he's talking to me about how screwed up his QuickBooks is, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm done doing the work, and I have to invoice him. ABC customer. And do we want the same thing for my QB consulting time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's just make it even that way.
Let's go ahead and charge him $250 for the consulting time. All right, so I'm going to say I'm putting this in January so we can see it's outside of the data, so we can see reports.
Right. Now, if you were to run a accounts receivable aging report, or look at your balance sheet, you're going to see that 250 is impacting and sitting as an open invoice.
Open invoice right here
for ABC Plumbing.
And
yes. Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and do the bill side too. My favorite place. And there's the bill. So what's next?
So now we need to just tie these two together through the Barter bank account. So you can either start with the invoice and pay it that way, or you can start with the bill and pay it that way as well. But either way, it's going to be paid through the Barter bank account. Now, since we don't have this setting, it's going specifically to undeposited funds.
Check this out. There's a Barter method. Well, and of course, the sample file has it set bad, but let's just
You
That's
can,
nice.
yeah,
You
I mean,
do.
you can get as granular as you want as far as setting it up. So you can set it up as a barter, as a payment method. So that way, you know, all the things that you've done through barter.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm paying, so they're paying this and it's going to undeposited funds, which is not good enough for me. I've got to finish,
Yep.
as we talked about undeposited
Right.
funds in one of our workshops. So I'm receiving that deposit. I'm actually forwarding this into the future because we're time traveling because we really don't
Yep.
like COVID anymore. All right. So I almost made a mistake.
Yeah.
Drop
So now
down
we
and
gotta
switch it to your barter bank account.
Right. So you're depositing it not into the real bank account because there's nothing to actually deposit. You
No
just
money.
need to deposit it into the barter bank account. But now that gives you a credit now that which you can pay the ABC vendor bill with the barter through the barter bank account. So there's our $250. So now if you go to pay bills,
let's go pay bills because we always want to receive before we pay our bills because that's a good method. All right, so I'm going to change this date again. I'm purposely moving this to January. Check. I'm not going to put, I'm going to make it print because then it fills up my queue. I've got to change it to my barter bank account.
exactly.
And then this is just giving me some question about, do I want to make that my default? No, I don't want that my default. We always want the good account, your default. So now I'm going to pay this, and I could even do, you know, whatever to make it know that it's a barter transaction. The more notes, the better. And then as you can see in my barter bank account, it is in and out. And then I will show you the P&L so you can see what that looks like. It should be a net profit of 0. I didn't mean to give it away.
You're spoiling it.
I'm not good to watch. Oh, shoot. There's more things in here. More things I've been playing with. But there's the 250 that we talked about. And we did make money because I invoiced some more and they paid it in my pretend account. So
right. So that's the idea of barter, of handling barter inside of QuickBooks, is that it just gets washed through the barter bank account and you're using it as a barter, setting it up as a bank account so that you can manage the flow of trade through that account.
So I figured out how to show you just those transactions I did. And as you can see, that this is the way barter should work. You should get the right value but if you don't, then there's just an invoice balance to pay and so forth.
Exactly. So you see it coming in and out. So go ahead and stop your sharing and then I'll show the QuickBooks Online.
All righty.
There we go. And again, I'm just in the QuickBooks Online sample company. So this is I think it's a landscaping company, but I did that already. Ahead of time, I created the barter bank account. Right now, the balance is 0. Through my customers, I did ADB. Apparently, I can't spell ABC. But I did ADB plumbing with a C, so that I indicate that it is a customer. And then for vendors, I did the same thing with there's ABC plumbing with the vendor with the V indication. Now, ahead of time, I did a bill. This bill is for $500. They had some septic cleanup.
We sure like these plumbing problems.
Right. And then for the customers, we did an invoice for $470. So there was some landscaping that we did. So this doesn't equate exactly the same amount. Now, how would you handle that? Because you've got a bill for $500 and an invoice for $470. So we need to actually pay them some cash.
Yeah.
So first thing would be to be receiving the payment for $470.
Yes.
We would do that for the customer, and the payment method, again, we could do barter if we wanted to, but here we have the option to do the deposit to, and we can have it go right into the barter bank account. We don't have to do that extra step of doing the deposit, which you can set up as you can do as a setting inside of QuickBooks Desktop to actually have this drop down. So if you prefer to be able to do that on the deposit to, there's a setting in Desktop to be able to change that. But here we're just doing the deposit to barter, and then it's for $470. And then I'll save and close. So now back on our chart of accounts, we now have a balance of $470. Now, when we go to pay the bill, we're going to do a little split, right? So we have to do twice. So I need my payment account to be the barter bank account, and here I'm only going to do $470 because that's the value of the bartering that I'm doing.
Oh, and look, I see something cool. So because when you change the barter account at the top left, on the bottom right, it told us how much was in your barter account. That was cool. Okay.
Yeah, so the balance will be listed there, so I'll know. Now, if you've got multiple people that you have this arrangement with, that barter balance might be a little bit, combined with multiple people. But in this case, it's nice and simple because I have only one barter going on here. So I choose save and close, or actually I'm going to do save, and that's going to save it. So now I have $30 left on that ABC plumbing vendor. I'm going to change it out of my real checking account, or however I'm going to actually pay it, and then record that payment of $30 out of the checking account, and then go from there. So that's how you would handle creating a barter bank. Handling a barter type of transaction. We have created a blog article that we'll put this video as well as the steps so that you can use for reference. That's the word I'm like.
To follow along.
And all of this is going to be part of a School of Bookkeeping course that we are going to have, kind of like these advanced topics of nuances like that. So we did the cleaning up the undeposited funds. We did the handling a deposit, retainers. Now we have barter, handling the barter options. So all of these things are going to be part of a larger course inside of School of Bookkeeping. So when you have those types of questions, you can go in and check out those specific scenarios, and then you'll have the answer, and then you'll be able to get back to work.
That's right.
So I'm going to put in the actually in the Facebook group here the link to the barter blog article, and then you can certainly review it at any time. So any other closing thoughts that you have there?
No, I love this trick. I have done it different ways myself using a clearing account, but I love your idea of calling it barter bank account, because that's what it is, and it gives you the trail of what happened. So probably good best practice to use with your customers. Often they just want to make these things disappear, but it nets out to zero, but then you have a track of what's going on, and accountability and audit trail and all those good things. So, and the key to it is to make sure that you're not getting a purple haircut or a 10, 20 hour gig of cleaning up QuickBooks.
Right. And we actually did have a couple questions in the Facebook group. Okay. So Susan asked, with multiple barter people, how would you verify who owes you?
Well,
what would you suggest, Carrie?
So
putting you on the spot.
So there's several things you could do. Maybe set up different barter accounts with different vendors. I mean, you can have as many bank accounts as you want. You just want them zeroed out. That would keep it clean, and that would keep the transactions around the invoices and the vendors all in one register. To me, that would be the cleanest, because you've got the name list. Remember, you've got the vendor and the customer, so that's a little wacky.
Right. Yeah, you could do that either as sub accounts. So you could do sub accounts of the barter, so that you could have for each person, because typically those those barter type of situations are going to be, part of your negotiation or just talking to your customer / vendor. So you could do that, and then you can filter a report just for the barter, and then total that by the sub accounts. So then that way you have a kind of like a running total of who's done what. So that would be a way to kind of handle that. Nice part about QuickBooks is there's multiple ways to handle multiple different things. So it's whatever works for you.
And just the key is you want those barter accounts, to either be zero, or if they're not, you know why.
Mm-hmm.
I want
right. So you can look into that, because typically what will happen is either people won't be looking and they'll deposit it into the checking account, or pay it from the checking account and not have the running total of the barter bank account in alignment, which will bubble up during your reconciliation if you're doing that.
It sure will. And you want to make sure, another thing I think to keep in mind is make sure that the preferences are set right for customers, that they have their default checking accounts. Because if it's going to remember what you did last, it's going to dump things in your barter account that you don't want there. So just some things to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a good point, because in desktop you have preferences to choose which one. Which one will open
checking, payroll,
checks or payroll and those types of things. Whereas in online, it's a sticky preference. So it'll remember the last time that you did something. So if you do this process with barter, then the next one, when you're actually trying to really pay it, may go to barter, and then you've got to back that out and change that as well. So good tips there. Matt,
hey, I've got a question.
Joined us. Thanks for joining us. That's awesome.
If you were to inactivate the barter account when it's zero, will it keep it from doing that in QBO?
If you do inactivate it and it's zero, then of course it won't show as an option to use. So if you're done with your bartering, that might be a good practice as well. Yeah.
I was just trying to think of a way to keep it, because I know customers will just go blindfold and run all these things to barter and think they have money in their regular checking account and go crazy. So that might be just, I also do things like that, tricky things, and I use a clearing account, and I always inactivate it and hide it after I'm done, but I make sure it goes to zero because it'll show up on all their balance sheets and stuff. So might be a workaround for QBO if it's sticky.
Okay. So next time, I forgot to bring up our schedule. No. Our next workshop Wednesday, we're going to be in September already.
Yes, next week is September. I don't know how it happened.
Next week we're going to talk about consignment.
Consignment's tricky.
Yeah. We haven't even talked about inventory yet, but consignment is one of those unique circumstances that you might want to do in your business, and need to know how to handle that in your QuickBooks. So we'll see you next week for another Workshop Wednesday.
All right. Bye,
Gary.
Sounds great. Bye-bye. Have a great rest of your week.